Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. So, I recently saw that the Climate Prediction Center put out an outlook for this month once again on Halloween night. So, figure I may as well update my November outlook video here real quick and kind of take a sneak peek into the first couple weeks. We'll take a look at any potential storm systems that might lie ahead, as well as some temperature anomalies, just so you guys can brace yourself for what may lie ahead. It kind of looks a little bit active, especially towards the latter half of the month. Of course, this is going to be my little disclaimer ahead of time on this video. Anything really past the 10th, take that with a grain of salt, because a lot of things can happen that could turn that forecast on its head. Also, just because of you may see, for example, you might have below average rainfall. It doesn't mean you're not going to get rainfall this month. It just may be a little less than expected. But of course, one storm system can change everything with that. That being said, let's go ahead and get into it here. We're going to start out by looking at the day 6 through 10 temperature probability outlook. This is mainly looking at areas that are likely to be above average versus below average. This is definitely having that negative PNA type of look here. Not a super strong PNA, but a negative PNA nonetheless. It's going to be colder out west and warmer to the east, especially towards the east coast and towards the interior southeast. We're almost guaranteed above average temperatures. Towards the central part of the country is where we start to maybe look more towards maybe a slightly above average look and maybe equal chances. And then of course out west, especially towards the northwest, is where we can expect those far below average temperatures on the first couple weeks of November. We move this to day 6 to 14 or 8 to 14, excuse me. And this is going to be basically looking into the end of the first half of this month. And our negative PNA is still in effect here, but some of those guarantees of above average temperatures are starting to taper off just a little bit. And that cold air is trying to make a little bit more of a push to the east and maybe even towards the south here a little bit. I do think eventually this will lead to a more active pattern, because it looks like after this storm system that's coming this week, and the link to that video will be in the top right corner here, but it looks like towards this point, we're towards after the end of this week, we're going to be into a little bit more of a quiet pattern. And I think eventually we're going to flip-flop between an active pattern and a very quiet pattern. But this will also lead to a lot of flip-flops within the temperature as well. That being said, let's go ahead and look at the rainfall for day 6 through 10. We can clearly see that there is a little bit of a increased chance of rainfall around the eastern half of the country, mainly up the eastern seaboard. There has been a little bit of an increase in tropical activity here. We'll have to watch and see if maybe a tropical cyclone of some kind may meander its way towards the eastern half of the country. Of course, with the way the jet stream is right now, the northwest is definitely going to be a hot spot for precipitation, even if it is potentially wintry. So I do think for a lot of areas, especially over towards the western half of North Dakota and further to the west, I think there is an increased chance of wintry precipitation here. But if you happen to be in this brown area here, you're in below average, you have a chance for below average rainfall. If you're in the white, you have an equal chance. But from what I can see here, the worst areas mainly are towards the desert, southwest here, and also maybe a little bit towards the Gulf states, maybe Louisiana, parts of Texas. Also, this looks like it tries to sneak its way into Arkansas and Mississippi as well. But I wouldn't read into that too much. It just means that these days you might not get as much rainfall. It doesn't mean that you won't get any rainfall during this time frame. It's still very much possible. Go to days 8 through 14, and it's pretty much a similar look. It's going to be more active out west, a little bit more tame to the east. So let's go ahead and take a look at the overall month now. So this was just made yesterday here. So overall for the month, not a surprise here, but this PNA does look like it's starting to weaken, and maybe there's going to be a push of cold air towards the latter half of the month, I'm thinking. But as of right now, I'm thinking still negative PNA in effect. Going to be warmer out towards the east, and it looks like especially towards the northeast is where we're going to have those above average temperatures. But there's still a fair amount of confidence towards the central plains being above average, a lot of the southeast, and maybe even some spots out towards the desert are likely to be above average here. We even can take a look at Alaska here, and it looks like we're kind of leaning right down the middle here. Central Alaska, you could get either or. Northern Alaska is actually going to be above average from the looks of it. And southern Alaska is actually going to be below average. So that cold air is going to be trying to push further and further south, as it looks like probably a ridge will be taking place just north of there. So let's go ahead and get out of that and go ahead and take a look at the precip outlook. And really, it's no surprise here. Could be increased activity over towards this region in the southern plains here, as the jet stream will sometimes meander down towards this region. But beyond that, it looks like the Gulf states are going to be actually in a very in a little bit more of a drier pattern. Not saying that we can't get rainfall here, but it looks like the chance of rainfall is a little bit more below average. Whereas out to the north and west, no surprises here. Pineapple Express starting to take effect here. So there's going to be increased rainfall here, especially, and increased snowfall as well. Same can also be said for Alaska, where we're looking at the southern end of it having below average precip, and the northern half having above average precip, and then central Alaska just pretty much being right down the middle. So let's go ahead and try to look through the first half of this month and see just what else could be in store here. We already know about our storm system that's going to be coming in towards the end of the month, or towards the end of this week, I should say, excuse me. And here it is right here coming into the screen from the west. This is going to be a pretty proficient looking severe weather maker. So we're not really paying as much attention to that. The next storm system looks like it's going to be mainly towards the northwest here. And if you can even see it now, even just looking at the upper levels of the jet stream, not really much play beyond the Four Corners region. The jet stream kind of kicks it out north of the border, and we don't really see too much of it for the anything towards the eastern half of the country. And that's pretty much just going to be the pattern almost all the way into the middle of the month here. This storm system doesn't even look that impressive, but it does kind of push that jet stream a little bit further south and may bring a little bit cooler temperatures out here. However, this also has the look of maybe two storm systems here trying to phase. I highly doubt it, but something to watch nonetheless. But this does look like it starts to bring a big Arctic blast down, and even tries to make a push towards the southeast. This looks like it's gonna last for a couple of days, and then it's gonna quickly be out of here. So it's gonna be a quick little sucker punch. Maybe even Alberta. I wouldn't even call it a clipper necessarily, but it's definitely gonna catch some people off guard here. But just as quickly as it moves in, it moves out, and we start to warm right back up. And that's pretty much towards the end of the model run. We'll go ahead and also take a look at the temperature anomaly, which will reflect what we were seeing there. So right now, big heat bubble is about to root itself into the eastern half of the country here. especially towards the latter half of next week, I would say. And here it is, right here towards the center of the country right now. This is when our jet stream starts to root itself in, and then here we go, especially up towards the north and east, is where this heat bubble is going to take really kind of lock itself in here. Temperatures could very well be about 10, maybe even 20 degrees above average, whereas the negative PNA area here, there are some areas that look like we could get about maybe 15 to 20 degrees below average, but the it definitely looks like the heat is going to be the more dominant story, going to be the more dominant air mass of the two. It even tries to sneak its way into the southwest here. Move this along here, and this heat almost does a good job of keeping this cold blast from pushing out to the west. Eventually, though, the cold air looks like it's gonna win out towards the middle of the month here, and then this big Arctic blast comes in. You can even see it here based off of these lighter colors here towards the middle of the month here. Could bring some potentially even record cold temperatures for some places, where we could see about 20, maybe even some areas pushing towards 25 degrees below average. It's pretty crazy. So, quick little pattern shift here, and then we're going back, and then it looks like we go to a positive PNA really quickly here. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I don't know where that came from. But that's pretty much what we have going on from the looks of it for the first half of the month and leading into the second. So it's a little Arctic blast for us to be looking out for towards the middle of the month, especially towards the eastern half of the country. If you're out west, I would be just kind of watching the temps right now. This is probably not going to be anything too far out of the ordinary for a lot of you, though. So we might as well go ahead and take a look at what we could be dealing with as far as precipitation is concerned, low pressures as well. So we'll go ahead and let this load real quick. All right, I think we should be ready in just a moment here. There we go. So again, we already know what's going on for this week. Starting out with some snow out west, and then eventually, as we start getting to the Four Corners region, our severe weather threat starts to pick up, especially into the late evening hours. GFS kind of has this leaning towards a Friday event more so. That's kind of what it's been doing, but the Euros seems like it's been a little bit more accurate given the parameters available. So we're not going to be too wrapped up into that. Next big storm system comes in for the west. Could bring in some big time snow for some of you. Ooh, and Sierra Nevadas almost look like they're going to get some heavy snow towards the middle of next week here. And then, and this is also an interesting event here towards what looks to be the 10th, the 11th. Little quick storm system may bring some heavy snow towards the Dakotas and Minnesota here. Makes its way into the UP, goes north of the border, and then we might get some rain more or less for the Northeast. Then here's talk of that tropical system that I've been hearing about, but I'm not really gonna read into that too much right now. And then this is where we start getting the la la land here, but this is kind of crazy too. This is an interesting run where that Arctic blast starts to come in that I had been talking about, and it looks like we get this really weak system that comes in from the Rockies, and we get a little bit of moisture here, and we can get some snow as far south as Oklahoma, the Texas Panhandle, and even parts of east central Kansas, and even further than that. But given how far out this is, it's so hard to really say that this is worth talking about too heavily. but it is an interesting run. And then on top of that, this looks like it even becomes a big snow event for the Ohio Valley? Question mark. Looks like our first really big coastal storm, possibly. I'm gonna be watching this run really closely because this could cause a lot of problems here. This even looks like it could have some lake effect snow with it, maybe even some backside snow for the Appalachians. This is a pretty bold model run here. I'm not gonna read into it too much, but definitely some interesting things come looking to be ahead here for a lot of us here in the eastern half of the U.S. as time goes on. So, like I said, don't read too far into this. We're already looking about 300 plus hours out. Thank goodness I'm not looking at the CFS because then we'd be in a real mess. But that's what these outlooks are for, and it kind of gives me something to kind of base my base future content off of as well. So again, just something interesting for you to look at and me as well. But that's all we got for this video here. If you liked what I did here, liked the info, definitely drop me a like. Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what you think of the potential of these model runs that we've gone over here today or tonight. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This has been Ty Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you in the next one.